What I said about hope in the last cast was I felt that hope was something that was manifested, something that you have to bring into yourself and kind of create hope for a better life, hope for whatever it might be. Whereas I believe desire is something internal, and oftentimes I think it's something that's unconscious. That if we focus on, we can become conscious of it. Uh, I think unconscious desire is something we all have because it pushes us in different directions, might lead us to pursue different careers or different people, different things in life. And only when we look at it and become aware of it are we aware of that desire. So, I think desire is something internal. I think it's a drive. I think it's a pull towards something, somebody, that sort of thing. And yeah, I think my main point is I believe it comes from within. I mean, people say that they want things. I'd like to clarify that I believe desire is much stronger than that, and it can be almost uncontrollable at times. It can take control of you. I think you can see that with people who become very obsessive about what they're working on. Think you're Victor Frankenstein. Just become consumed by their work, or whatever it is that they're pursuing, whatever it is that stirs that desire in them, and it can overtake them. And I think that's the danger of desire, or one of the dangers, I should say. There are others as well. There's something interesting you said. You said chosen not to enact, like you have a desire and you choose to act on it, or you don't choose, and that's conscious desire. Because I think there are unconscious desires that we're not aware of, and maybe I've had this experience where I've had a conscious desire, excuse me, that I didn't act on, and it kept coming back to me in my dreams. And it kept manifesting in my dreams, and it was just this repetitive kind of haunting specter. And that's a desire I'm aware of coming to haunt me because it hadn't been fulfilled. So there are unconscious desires as well, which I think those can become a negative force because while we're not aware of these desires that are within us, they want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be understood, and sometimes they present themselves in less than positive ways. What we value as human beings is based on the limits of our lifespans. That's a lot of people would agree. I think that life would be less meaningful if we didn't know it ended, and if it wasn't finite. And I think that fact of life being finite, it really speaks to the strength of desire and its power. Because think about that. One of the biggest one of the biggest understandings we have to come to grips with when we're children is when we find out that we're going to die. And I remember the exact day when I figured out I was going to die, because we had a cat that died, and my sister and my mother, they were upset. More so my sister. My mom, I think she'd lived a longer life and she'd seen death more frequently. But my sister was really upset, and I said, "Well, what's wrong? What's the big deal?" And this is how she phrased it, because the cat had died. She said, "We're never going to see him again." And that's where I put it together. And I remember that sinking feeling in my gut, and realizing that one day that was going to happen to me, and I was never going to be seen again either. And so I think the fact that we have to learn that, we have to carry that with us, and then we still go through life, and we still pursue things with fervor and passion, and we treat them as though they're the most important thing to ever exist. I think that speaks to the power of desire, and maybe just the weakness of human beings, but also the strength. That's fascinating. I just hadn't thought about it that way. I think wants can be a replacement for a desire. I think going back to what we talked about on the Hope podcast, thinking about hopes more metaphorically, I think thinking about desires more metaphorically, perhaps if you desire chocolate chip ice cream, but they only have chocolate ice cream. Well, you might want that, but it's not. But it's not what you desired. Does that make sense? Kind of a replacement. Like a want is like a less severe, or maybe it can be a band-aid, a placeholder, but that's the thing. And I've talked to my friends about, or my friend about desire quite a bit, and it's endless, it's bottomless. Desire never ends. Once you get what you desire, you will desire something else. I think all of us can always name countless things that we desire. I think it's what really drives human beings to keep going. And so we're not gonna beat it. We're not gonna get rid of it. I think it's just one of these things that we have to. I think it's like a lot of things. If we can look at it and we can try to understand it a little better, and obviously this means we have to look within ourselves and understand ourselves a little bit better. We can better channel it. I don't think it's a response, because I think what we get angry and then we respond with yelling. But anger is its. Does that make sense to you? Anger is the emotion. Yelling is the response. Desire is the emotion. Pursuing it is the response. That's just how I'm perceiving things. Does that make sense? Yeah, and so I believe desire is a necessary. I'm going to call it an emotion. I believe desire is a necessary emotion, and just like hope, it requires will. Will to resist certain desires, as well as the will to pursue certain desires. And I also think that, again, it needs to be thought of more metaphorically, because there are some desires that are inachievable in a specific conception. If there's a person that you're in love with and you want to have a life with that person, but they're in love with somebody else and they have a life with that person, well, obviously you're never going to have that with that person. So that desire is never going to be fulfilled. But if you can think metaphorically, oh, I want a person with these qualities. I want, just less specific, less narrowed down. Those desires, I think, can be fulfilled. Maybe we could think of desire as a beautiful old red Corvette that's parked in the garage. And maybe every once in a while we need to pull the tarp off and hop in it and drive it around the block just to acknowledge it and pay respect to it, and pay tribute to it, so it doesn't like an angry god, so it doesn't destroy us. Yeah, and I think that's the importance of becoming conscious of your desires, because it's the shadow lives in the unconscious, and an unconscious desire becomes a shadow desire, and it will demand to be. Like I said, I've had dreams that just persist, and they persist, and they persist, and they persist, because it's my unconscious just screaming at me. This is something you need to deal with. This is not going away. Address it, or we'll see you tonight. It's kind of like, again, Frankenstein. It's Frankenstein's monster knocking on the door. Remember me? Yeah. You owe me. You have a debt to me. We have to give him something to keep him at bay. We have to keep feeding that monster, or something of the like. And I think calling it an emotion is accurate, because emotions are tools, and a tool can be used improperly. A hammer can become a deadly weapon if not used properly. So I think it's a tool that needs to be used and understood. And I think I said this during the Hope podcast as well. It's just like there's a toolbox that we get, we need to figure out throughout our whole lives. We got to open the toolbox. We got to look through it. We got to understand what these things are, how they work, how to apply them, where not to apply them. We'll mess up. We'll make mistakes. But understanding is always going to be the right way to go. But with greater knowledge comes greater sorrow. So what do I know?